Hook, midnight to 0:30. My brother-in-law walked into the corner office at First Meridian Bank at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, wearing his best suit, carrying a folder with his whole future in it. He was there to close a $340,000 business loan. Final meeting. Last signature. He'd told my sister-in-law they were celebrating that night. He shook the loan officer's hand. He sat down, and then the door behind him opened, and the loan officer stood up and said the 11 words that ended 12 years of jokes at my expense. "Mr. Draper, I'd like you to meet the bank's owner." And Vince turned around in his chair. And there I was, the freeloader, holding his file. Now, what I found on page 4 of that file gave me the power to end him. Not embarrass him. End him legally, financially, completely in front of his wife's whole family, with a clean conscience and a paper trail. I'm going to tell you what I did instead. But first, you need to understand 12 years of Thanksgivings. My name is Ray. I'm 65 years old, and I live in a 110-year-old farmhouse that everyone in my wife's family believes explains everything about me. The farmhouse belonged to my wife Nadine's grandparents. When we married 36 years ago, her grandmother was still living it alone, and Nadine and I moved in to look after her. And when she passed, she left the house to Nadine. That's it. That's the whole scandal. We got an old house with a bad roof and a wood stove, and we stayed because we loved it and because I don't like new things. But here's what that looked like from the outside, and I understand how it looked. I truly do. It looked like Ray married into a house. Add to that the following facts. I drive a 22-year-old pickup. I wear flannel to family events, including one famous Easter, a funeral reception, which I will never live down. I keep strange hours, home on a Tuesday afternoon, gone before dawn, no office anybody's ever visited. When people ask what I do, I say I'm in banking in a tone that closes the subject, and then I ask about their kids. And so, about 20 years ago, my wife's family quietly solved the mystery of Ray in the simplest way available. Nadine works. Ray doesn't really. Ray putters. Ray got lucky with the house. Most of them never said it out loud. They didn't have to. It lived in the little things, the way my father-in-law, God rest him, used to explain very basic things to me slowly. The way nobody ever asked my opinion about money at the table where money was discussed constantly. And then, 12 years ago, Vince married Nadine's youngest sister, Carla, and Vince said it out loud. Vince Draper sells commercial flooring. And I want to be fair to him from the start because this story doesn't work if he's a cartoon. Vince is good at it. He built his dealership up from a van and a storage unit. He works brutal hours. He provides for Carla and their 2 boys, and he did all of it with no help from anybody, which is the fact around which his entire personality is organized. Vince is a self-made man, and like a lot of self-made men, he has one religion, and it's the resume. Within about 20 minutes of meeting me, this is at his own engagement party, Vince had asked me what I did, received my usual, I'm in banking, looked me up and down, flannel the boots, glanced once around the room, and arrived at the same conclusion the family had. Except Vince, unlike the family, thought it was funny. "So what is it you do all day, Ray?" he said loud, grinning, with an arm around Carla. "House like that. No job anybody can name. Man, I picked the wrong sister." Big laugh. First of hundreds. Over 12 years, it became his bit. His signature. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every graduation, and christening and 4th of July. Here he is, the freeloader, arms wide, coming across the lawn to hug me. "Ray, tell the boys how you made your fortune." Oh, wait, at the table, to his sons, to actual children. Must be nice, man. Must be nice. Every single time I mention doing anything, ever, at any hour a weekday. And look, I want to be honest about something because this story gets told wrong when I leave this part out. It was a good joke. That's the trap of it. It wasn't cruel on its face. It was affectionate, technically. He'd hug me while he said it. If I'd objected, I'd have been the problem, the humorless brother-in-law who can't take a ribbing. So I did what you do. I laughed. 12 years I laughed. Nadine asked me once, maybe you're 5, driving home. Why do you let him? One sentence, Ray. You could end it with one sentence. And I told her the truth, which is the closest thing I have to a philosophy. Sweetheart, the minute I say it, I can never unsay it. Right now I know something about everyone at that table, and they know nothing about me. That's not an insult. I remember shrugging. That's the most comfortable chair in the room. She said, "You're a strange man, Raymond." She's right. But hold on to that idea. The minute I say it, I can never unsay it because it's the whole reason the ending happened the way it did. Here's the part Vince never asked about in 12 years. I started at First Meridian Bank when I was 19 years old as a teller. It was a little community bank then, 4 branches, farm loans, the kind of bank where the manager knew whose harvest had come in short and carried them quietly till spring. I never left. Head teller, then lending, then commercial lending, then chief credit officer. I spent 30 years learning one skill, and it's the only skill I have, and it's this. I can read a file and tell you whether the person behind it tells themselves the truth. That's all lending is. People think it's math. It's not math. The math takes 20 minutes. It's the other thing. It's whether the man across the desk believes his own numbers. 21 years ago, the family that owned First Meridian wanted out. Big regionals were circling, and everybody knew what that meant. The branches gutted, the farm loan sold off. Every decision moved to a tower in a city 600 miles away. I was 54 days from turning 45. I had 30 years of knowing every business on every main street in 3 counties. I did the most reckless thing a careful man ever did. I put together the buyout. My savings, all of it, 2 partners who trusted me, and 7 years of debt that I do not recommend to anyone with a heart condition. Today, First Meridian has 11 branches. I own 60% of it. And the reason I keep strange hours and no office anybody visits is that my actual office is a corner room at the main branch downtown, where I still personally review every commercial loan over $100,000 because that skill, the file reading skill, is the only thing I've ever been good at, and I'll stop doing it when they bury me. Nadine knows, of course. Nadine's known everything for 36 years. The family? The family knows Ray's in banking. Nobody ever asked the follow-up question. 12 years of freeloader jokes, and not one person ever asked the follow-up question. The file landed on my desk on a Thursday in March, in the ordinary stack between a dairy expansion and a strip mall refinance. Draper Commercial Flooring, LLC. Applicant, Vincent A. Draper. Requested, $340,000. Equipment, 2 trucks, a warehouse lease. Purpose, expansion into the county south of us. I looked at that name for a long time, and I want to tell you exactly what I felt, because it wasn't what you think. There was about 4 seconds of something warm and ugly. I'm human, and then, honest to God, the thing I felt was dread. Because I knew, before I opened it, that whatever was in that folder was going to follow me into every Thanksgiving for the rest of my life. The right move was obvious, and I did it immediately. I walked it down the hall to recuse myself. Family. Conflict of interest. Standard procedure. It goes to our other senior credit officer. My name never touches it. Vince never knows. Marcy ran the file that afternoon, and at 4 o'clock she knocked on my door, closed it behind her, and said, "Ray, you need to see page 4. Here's the thing about Vince's application. The business was real. Revenue solid, contracts genuine, growth story true. The loan, on the honest numbers, was maybe a coin flip, the kind I found a way to say yes to 100 times for a man who works like Vince works. But Vince hadn't submitted honest numbers. On page 4, Vince had claimed his company assets 2 trucks that our 5-minute record check showed released. He'd listed a receivable of $85,000 from a contract that had, we confirmed it with one phone call, been canceled in January. And he'd left off a $60,000 merchant cash advance debt that showed up the moment we pulled the report. One of those brutal daily repayment loans that means a business is quietly gasping for air. Individually, people fudge. I've seen 40 years of fudging. Together, signed and initialed on a federal application, that has a name. That name is bank fraud, and it's not a Thanksgiving argument word. It's a federal referral word, and every bank in the country, including mine, has a compliance obligation when we find it. Marcy laid it out flat. Standard path is we decline, document the misstatements, and refer it up. Ray, it's your brother-in-law. Tell me how you want to handle the referral. And I sat there in my corner office, holding 12 years of Here He Is, the freeloader, in one hand, and the paperwork to legally, cleanly, righteously end Vincent Draper in the other. I'd like to tell you, I never considered it. I considered it for one entire night. I sat on my porch till 2 in the morning, and I built the whole thing in my head. The referral, the investigation, the family finding out not only what Vince had done, but who'd caught him. Every Thanksgiving replayed with the ending rewritten. I built it, and I furnished it, and I lived in it for about 4 hours. And then somewhere before dawn, I thought about Carla. And 2 boys who think their dad hung the moon. And the fact that the man had lied on that application for the oldest reason in my files, not greed, drowning. That cash advance was the tell. Vince was gasping and too proud to tell anyone. And I know exactly what that pride costs because I've been sitting across a desk from it for 40 years. The strong thing and the satisfying thing are almost never the same thing. I went in the next morning and told Marcy, set a final meeting. Standard close format. I'll take it myself. She stared at me. You recused. Imun recusing. Paper it however compliance needs. He's going to hear this from family. Tuesday, 10 o'clock. Best suit I'd ever seen Vince wear. Marcy met him, shook his hand, got him seated, made 2 minutes of weather talk. Then the door opened behind him, and Marcy stood and said it. Mr. Draper, I'd like you to meet the bank's owner. I have watched a lot of faces across that desk. I have never watched one do what Vince's did. He turned around holding his coffee, smiling the salesman's smile, ready to charm one more decision maker. And the smile just lost power, like something unplugged behind it. Coffee frozen halfway up. He looked at me, then at Marcy, then at me again, and honest to God, he checked the window like a man verifying which building he was in. Ray, he finally said, barely a voice at all. This is, you work here. Sit down, Vince. You work here. No, Vince. Softly. I own here. Sit down. He sat down like his legs had been repossessed. And I'll tell you something strange. 12 years, and I'd never once seen Vince quiet. I found out that morning I didn't enjoy it. That's a thing worth knowing about yourself. Marcy left us. I put the file on the desk between us, and I turned it around to face him, and I opened it to page 4. I'm going to walk you through your own application, I said, and I need you to just listen. And I did. The trucks, the dead receivable, the cash advance, one item at a time, no anger, the same voice I'd use for a dairy expansion. And I watched 12 years of Here He Is, the freeloader die on that man's face and turn into something I'd truthfully never wanted to see. Fear. Actual fear. Ray. His hands were flat on the desk. Ray, the receivable. They told me the contract might get reinstated. I was going to Vince. The trucks are basically Vince. I waited till he stopped. You watch a lot of movies about banks. So listen carefully, because this is the real version. What's on page 4 isn't padding. On a signed application, it's a federal matter. And if this file leaves this room the ordinary way, what happens next stops being up to me. Do you understand what I just said? He understood. I watch him understand. He went gray, and his eyes went to the photo on my desk. Nadine, the farmhouse, and I could see the whole geometry of it landing on him at once. What he'd done who'd caught him, and every single Thanksgiving, all 12 of them, arriving in his chest at the same time. Oh God, he said. Carla, not the business. Not am I going to jail. Carla. And I'll tell you, that one word is the reason the rest of this conversation went the way it went. Because it told me the man across my desk still told himself the truth about one thing at least. Here's what's going to happen, I said. This application is going to be withdrawn. Today. Voluntarily. By you. Withdrawn. Not declined. No referral. No file. That's a door I can hold open exactly once. And only because you're going to walk through it in the next hour. He nodded. Kept nodding. Couldn't stop nodding. Then you're going to go home, and you're going to tell Carla the truth about the cash advance and how deep the water actually is. Not for me, because she signed on a half your life, Vince, and she's entitled to know it's taking on water. And then his voice cracked, and this 51-year-old salesman, this lion of every holiday lawn for 12 years, wiped his eyes with the heel of his hand. And then what? The expansion's dead. Without this loan the whole. And then I said, in 30 days, you're going to come back to this office with real numbers. All of them, including the ugly ones. And I'm going to look at the honest version of your business, which, by the way, you idiot, was probably fundable. Vince, the true story was a coin flip, and I have spent my whole life finding ways to say yes to coin flips who work like you work. He made a sound at that. I pretended not to hear it. And he pretended not to make it, and that arrangement suited us both. And if the honest file supports it, this bank would do business with you. And if it doesn't yet, I will personally show you the path until it does. That's the deal. The only thing I'm not willing to lend you anymore, Vince, is the lie. Silence for a long time. Then he said quietly, not to me really, 12 years. 12 years I called you. Yeah. Why didn't you ever say anything? And I gave him the only answer I had, which is the one I'd given Nadine on that drive home in year 5. Because the minute I say it, I can never unsay it. And because Vince and this part one said as kindly as I could, because it was the hard part, and he'd earned the hard part. A man who needs everyone to know what he's worth is usually a man who's scared he's worth nothing. I've been reading your file for 12 years, son. Page 4 just confirmed it. He withdrew the application at 11:40 that morning. Here's the part you're waiting for, and I'm going to disappoint you in the best way I know how. I never told the family. Not one word. Nadine knows. Nadine's known everything for 36 years, and nobody else. Vince told them. Thanksgiving, 8 months later. New contracts, honest books. We'd close a smaller, real loan in September, proper file, clean as a whistle, Marcy's signature, not mine. And at the table, before the food, Vince stood up with his glass and tapped it. And Carla looked at him like she knew, because of course she knew. He'd come home in March and told her everything. And they'd cried about it in their kitchen, and that not my corner office is where the man actually got refinanced. I want to say something about Ray, Vince said. The table went quiet. The boys looked up. For 12 years, I made the same joke about this man. And this spring I found out his voice went, and he stopped and got it back. I found out exactly who I'd been making it about. I'm not going to tell you the whole story, because it's mine to be ashamed of, not yours to enjoy. But I'll tell you what he did. He caught me at the lowest, dumbest moment of my life, holding every card there was to hold, and he used exactly none of them. He handed them back, and then he helped me. He raised a glass, and he couldn't fully look at me, and he said, to the hardest working man at this table, sorry it took me 12 years to read the file. I looked at Nadine. Nadine looked at me, and under the table, 36 years of marriage squeezed my hand once. Sit down, Vince, I said. You're letting the food get cold. Big laugh. Best one his bid ever got. Here's what I believe. After 46 years of reading files, everybody at every table you've ever sat at is carrying a page for. Every one of them. The loud ones, the smug ones, the ones with the jokes, especially the ones with the jokes. Somewhere in the file, there's a page where the numbers don't hold, and the whole performance exists so nobody ever asks for the file. The quiet person at the table already knows this. That's usually why they're quiet. So you can spend your life making sure everyone knows exactly what you're worth. Or you can be the other thing. The one who reads every file, holds every card, and discovers at the moment of maximum power that the strongest sentence in the language is the one you decide not to say. Power you use up is spent. Power you decline to use, that you keep forever. Vince will spend the rest of his life knowing what I could have done that Tuesday. And that knowledge, sitting quietly at every holiday between us, held and never used. That's the only interest I ever wanted on the loan. If there's someone at your table who's been underestimated for years and never once corrected the record, or if you've ever held every card and put them down, tell me about it in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want more stories like this one, hit subscribe, because there are a lot more quiet men out there holding a lot more folders. I'll see you in the next one.